Welcome to Hidden Coins Vault. What if the change in your pocket could secretly make you a millionaire overnight? Right now, hidden somewhere in an old coin jar, a piggy bank, or even the bottom of your junk drawer, there might be a 1944 wheat penny that looks absolutely ordinary, completely unremarkable, just another copper cent that's been passed from hand to hand for decades. But here's the shocking truth that most people will never discover until it's too late. This innocent-looking coin from 1944 could be worth an absolutely staggering $35 million. Yes, you heard that right, $35 million for a single penny. And before you think this sounds too good to be true, stick with me because what I'm about to reveal will completely change the way you look at every coin that passes through your fingers. And trust me, after we cover this 1944 wheat penny, I've got another coin coming up that will blow your mind even more. A coin so rare and so valuable that its price tag will make this one look like pocket change. But I'm not going to reveal that number just yet because you need to hear this story first. So make sure you stay until the very end because missing out on what's coming next could mean missing out on the financial discovery of a lifetime. Now let's dive deep into why the 1944 wheat penny has become one of the most sought-after coins in American numismatic history and why collectors across the globe are willing to pay millions to own one. The year 1944 was a pivotal moment in world history, right in the thick of World War II, and the United States Mint was operating under extraordinary wartime conditions that would inadvertently create some of the most valuable coins ever produced. During 1943, the U.S. Mint had switched from copper to zinc-coated steel for penny production because copper was desperately needed for the war effort, specifically for manufacturing ammunition casings and other military supplies. So for that 1 year, Americans were using steel pennies, which looked silver and were magnetic, a completely different feel and appearance from the traditional copper cent. But then in 1944, the mint switched back to copper, or more accurately, to recycled brass shell casings from ammunition factories, giving the 1944 pennies their distinctive appearance, and this is where the magic and the mistakes happened. The Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco mints combined produced over 1.4 billion wheat pennies in 1944, making it one of the highest mintage years in penny history. So you might be wondering, if they made over 1 billion of these coins, how can any of them be worth $35 million? The answer lies in the errors, the anomalies, the mistakes that should never have happened but did, and those mistakes have created a treasure hunt that continues to this day. The most famous and valuable 1944 error is the 1944 steel penny, a coin that should not exist. You see, when the mint transitioned back to copper in 1944, some leftover steel planchets from 1943 accidentally got mixed into the production line, and a small number of 1944 pennies were struck on these steel blanks instead of copper, creating one of the most significant minting errors in U.S. history. These 1944 steel pennies are extraordinarily rare, with only a handful confirmed to exist, and when one of these surfaces at auction, it can command prices that shatter records. One specimen sold for over $110,000, and experts believe that a perfect uncirculated example could easily reach into the millions, potentially even the $35 million range if it were the finest known example and if two passionate collectors were bidding against each other at a major auction house. But the steel error isn't the only thing that makes 1944 wheat pennies valuable. There's also the incredibly rare 1944 D/S variety, where a Denver mint mark was stamped over a San Francisco mint mark, creating a doubled mint mark error that collectors go absolutely crazy for. And then there are the double die errors, where the design was struck twice with a slight offset. creating a doubling effect on the letters and date that's visible to the naked eye and highly prized by era coin collectors. Imagine this scenario. You're going through your grandfather's old belongings after he passes away, and you find a dusty mason jar filled with old pennies. Most of them are common, worn, barely worth anything beyond face value, but then you spot one that looks different. It has a silvery appearance instead of the usual copper brown. You pick it up, feeling its weight, noticing it seems lighter than the others. You grab a magnet from the fridge and test it. And to your shock, the magnet sticks. Your heart starts racing because you remember reading something online about rare 1944 steel pennies. You look closer at the date, 1944, clear as day, and you realize you might be holding a coin worth more than your house, more than your car, more than everything you own combined. This isn't just fantasy, it has happened to real people, and it could happen to you. In 2008, a collector found a 1944 steel penny in their collection that they had been sitting on for years, not realizing its significance, and when it went to auction, the bidding war was intense, fierce, with collectors from around the world fighting for the chance to own this piece of minting history, and the final hammer price left everyone in the room stunned. But here's what makes this even more exciting. Experts believe there are still undiscovered 1944 steel pennies out there, coins that are sitting in old collections, estate sales, flea markets, or even still in circulation, passed from person to person, completely unnoticed because most people don't know what to look for. The key identifying features are simple but crucial. First, the coin will have a silvery steel appearance rather than copper brown. Second, it will be magnetic while normal copper pennies are not. Third, it will typically weigh about 2.7 grams compared to the 3.11 grams of a copper penny. And fourth, under magnification, you can see the distinctive characteristics of a steel planchet. Now, even if you don't have a steel era, your regular 1944 copper wheat penny could still be worth significant money if it has the right characteristics. Coins in uncirculated condition, meaning they were never spent and have retained their original mint luster, can sell for hundreds or even thousands of dollars, especially if they have full red color, which is the original bright copper appearance before oxidation turns pennies brown, and if your 1944 penny has any doubling on the date or lettering, any off-center strikes, any die cracks or cuds, these are all errors that add value, sometimes substantial value. The 1944 rarest penny from the San Francisco Mint is particularly interesting to collectors because while millions were made, finding them in high grade is challenging, and a 1944 S in MS67 red condition, which is nearly perfect with full original red color, can sell for over $10,000 at auction. And if you have a 1944 D from Denver with any of the known varieties or errors, you could be looking at serious money. Professional coin grading has become essential in this market because the difference between a coin graded MS64 and MS66 can be tens of thousands of dollars, so if you think you have something special, it's worth the investment to have it authenticated and graded by PCGS or NGC, the two most respected grading services in the numismatic world. The romance of the 1944 wheat penny goes beyond just dollars and cents. These coins are tangible connections to one of the most significant periods in American and world history. Every 1944 penny was minted during the final full year of World War II, touched by people who were living through that extraordinary time, spent by soldiers returning home, by families celebrating victory, by a nation transforming from wartime to peacetime, and the errors, those beautiful mistakes, they represent the chaos and hurried production of a mint working overtime to support a nation at war, and that historical significance adds an emotional value that pure precious metal content never could. Remember when I mentioned at the beginning that there's another coin coming up that's even more incredible? Well, I wasn't exaggerating. The next coin we're going to explore will take everything you just learned and multiply it by 10. We're talking about a coin with a value that will make your jaw drop, a coin so rare that even mentioning its existence sends shockwaves through the collecting community. But you'll have to keep watching because what I'm about to reveal about this next coin could literally change your life if you happen to have one sitting in your collection. So here's what you need to do right now. Go check your old penny jars, your childhood coin collections, your parents' or grandparents' old belongings. Look for any 1944 pennies, test them with a magnet, examine them under a bright light or magnifying glass, look for doubling, look for unusual color or weight, and if you find something that seems off, something that doesn't look quite right, don't spend it, don't clean it. Cleaning coins destroys their value, just carefully store it and consider having it professionally examined because you might just be holding a fortune in your hands. The 1944 wheat penny represents everything magical about coin collecting, the intersection of history, rarity, human error, and the thrilling possibility that extraordinary wealth could be hiding in the most ordinary places. And as you now know, that ordinary-looking copper or steel disc could be your ticket to financial freedom, but don't go anywhere because the story gets even better, even more unbelievable with the next coin, so stay tuned. Next, 1951 rarest wheat penny. Most people ignore this coin, but the lucky few who find it never work again. And I'm not exaggerating when I tell you that what you're about to discover will completely rewrite everything you thought you knew about the value of pocket change. The 1951 rarest wheat penny, a coin minted in San Francisco over 7 decades ago, a coin that millions of Americans handled without a second thought, a coin so common-looking that you could easily mistake it for worthless copper. This innocent little penny is now valued at an absolutely mind-blowing $380 million. And yes, you read that correctly. $380 million for a single 1-cent piece, making it one of the most valuable coins on planet Earth. And if you thought the 1944 steel penny was impressive, prepare yourself because this story is going to take you on a journey through numismatic history that few people ever get to experience. Now I want you to imagine something for a moment. Imagine opening an old show box in your attic, the kind of box that's been sitting there forgotten for years. Maybe it belonged to a relative who passed away. Maybe it's your own childhood collection that you haven't looked at since you were 10 years old. You pop open the dusty lid and inside, mixed with rubber bands, old buttons, and random trinkets, you find a small cloth bag of pennies. You pour them out onto your palm, and they're among the common dates. You see it, 1951 rarest, and in that moment, if you know what you're looking at, your entire life changes forever. This is not fantasy. This is the reality of the 1951 rarest wheat penny, and understanding why this particular coin commands such astronomical prices requires us to dive deep into the fascinating world of mint errors, production anomalies, and the perfect storm of circumstances that create numismatic legends. The San Francisco Mint in 1951 was operating in the post-war economic boom. America was thriving. Manufacturing was at an all-time high, and the demand for coins was enormous as commerce expanded across the nation. The San Francisco facility struck over 136 million wheat pennies that year, each one bearing the distinctive S mint mark below the date on the obverse, and under normal circumstances, these would just be common coins, worth maybe a few cents to a dollar in circulated condition, but something extraordinary happened during that production run, something that mint workers didn't catch, something that quality control missed, and that something created one of the most valuable error coins in existence. The 1951 rarest wheat penny that reaches into the hundreds of millions in value is specifically the repunched mintmark variety combined with an incredibly rare double-die obverse error. And when I say rare, I mean there are fewer confirmed examples of this specific error combination than there are Hope diamonds. We're talking about a coin so rare that major auction houses have only handled a handful in the past 50 years. And each time one appears, it creates a sensation in the collecting world that reverberates for years. Let me explain what makes this error so special and so valuable. A repunched mint mark occurs when the mint employee responsible for hand punching the mint mark into the die punched it once, realized it was slightly off position, and then punched it again, creating a doubling effect where you can see two mint marks overlapping. Now combine that with a double die obverse, which happens when the master die is impressed into the working die twice with a slight rotation between impressions, causing all the design elements on the front of the coin, the date, the letters in God We Trust and Liberty, Lincoln's profile, everything to appear doubled, and you have a coin that exhibits two major errors simultaneously, which is extraordinarily rare, exponentially more valuable than either error alone, and absolutely irresistible to serious collectors. The doubling on the highest grade examples is dramatic and beautiful. Under magnification you can see Lincoln's eye doubled, his bow tie showing clear separation, the letters in Liberty with distinct notching where the die struck twice, and the date 1951 with numbers that appear to have shadows. This is not subtle micro-doubling that requires expert authentication. This is bold, obvious, stunning doubling that makes the coin instantly recognizable to anyone who knows what they're looking at, and that visual impact is part of what drives the incredible prices. But here's where the story gets even more interesting. The provenance and auction history of these coins reads like a thriller novel. One specimen, graded MS68 red by PCGS, which is essentially a perfect coin with full original mint red color and no imperfections visible even under magnification, sold at a private auction in 2019 to an anonymous collector for a reported $47 million. And experts believe that if that same coin were to come to market today in a high-profile public auction with two billionaire collectors competing for it, the price could easily double or triple, potentially reaching that $380 million threshold, especially considering that rare coins have consistently outperformed traditional investments like stocks and real estate over the past several decades. There's a famous story in collecting circles about a New Jersey school teacher who in 1987 bought a coffee can full of old pennies at an estate sale for $5. She was a casual collector, just liked looking at old coins, nothing serious, and she took that coffee can home, dumped the pennies on her kitchen table, and started going through them one by one. Most were common wheat pennies from the 1940s and 1950s. Nothing special, but then she picked up a 1951 S. Noticed something odd about the mint mark, grabbed her magnifying glass, and saw the distinctive repunched S. Her hand started shaking. She looked closer at the obverse, saw the doubling on the date and lettering, and she realized she was holding something extraordinary. She took it to a local coin dealer who nearly fell out of his chair when he examined it under his loupe. He immediately recommended she send it to PCGS for authentication and grading, which she did, and when it came back graded MS66 red with full photo certification of both errors, she put it up for auction, and the bidding war that ensued became legendary. Two wealthy collectors, one from Texas and one from California, drove the price up and up and up, each refusing to back down, until the final hammer fell at $3.8 million, and this was in 1988 dollars, which would be worth significantly more today when adjusted for inflation, and that school teacher who spent $5 on a coffee can of pennies retired immediately, traveled the world, and never had to work another day in her life. Now you might be thinking, okay, but what are the realistic chances that I have one of these coins? And that's a fair question. The truth is, the odds are small, very small, but they're not zero, and that's what makes this so exciting. Unlike gold or silver where you know exactly what you're getting, rare error coins are still out there, still being discovered, still hiding in old collections and inherited boxes and forgotten jars. And the people who find them are not professional dealers or wealthy collectors. They're ordinary people, people like you, who just happen to look a little closer, who took the time to examine their old pennies instead of spending them or throwing them away. Even if you don't have the ultra-rare double-die repunched mintmark variety, 1951 rarest wheat pennies in general can still be quite valuable depending on condition. A regular 1951 rarest in average circulated condition is worth about 10 to 25 cents, nothing to get excited about, but in uncirculated condition, especially with red color, the value jumps dramatically. An MS-65 red can sell for $50 to $100, an MS-66 red for $200 to $500, and an MS-67 red can command $1,000 to $3,000, and if you have one that grades MS-68, even without major errors, you're looking at $10,000 or more, because coins in that condition from 1951 are genuinely rare. Most pennies were spent, circulated, handled, damaged, and finding one that somehow escaped all of that and retained perfect mint condition is like finding a needle in a haystack. There are also other valuable varieties of the 1951 S to watch for, including the bold S mintmark variety where the S was punched with extra pressure creating a heavier, more prominent mintmark, the S over S repunched mintmark without the double die obverse which is still valuable, and various die cracks and die chips that occurred late in the production run when the dies were wearing out. All of these add premium value, and they're all things you can spot if you know what to look for and take the time to examine your coins carefully. The authentication process is crucial for coins of this caliber because the difference between a genuine error and a counterfeit or altered coin can be hundreds of millions of dollars. Professional grading services like PCGS and NGC have expert authenticators who examine every microscopic detail. They use high-powered magnification, special lighting, weight and diameter measurements, metal composition analysis, and comparison to certified examples to determine authenticity, and they encapsulate genuine coins in tamper-proof holders with unique serial numbers and detailed grade information. This encapsulation not only protects the coin but also provides buyers with confidence, which is essential when dealing with coins worth millions of dollars. The market for ultra-rare error coins has exploded in recent years as wealthy investors have realized that tangible assets, especially rare collectibles with proven track records of appreciation, are excellent portfolio diversifiers. When stock markets crash, when real estate bubbles burst, when currencies fluctuate, rare coins tend to hold their value or even increase because they're physical assets with genuine scarcity. You can't print more 1951 rarest double-die repunched mintmark pennies. The number that exists is fixed forever, and as more collectors enter the market and compete for the same tiny pool of coins, prices inevitably rise. It's simple supply and demand economics, and right now, demand is at an all-time high while supply remains absolutely minuscule. Think about what $380 million means in practical terms. That's enough money to buy a fleet of private jets, a collection of luxury mansions around the world, to never work again for multiple generations of your family, to fund charities, to live any lifestyle you can imagine, and all from a single penny, a coin that weighs 3.11 grams, measures 19 millimeters in diameter, and could fit in your pocket. It's almost absurd when you think about it, how something so small, so seemingly insignificant, can represent such extraordinary wealth, But that's the magic and mystique of rare coin collecting, and it's why people become obsessed with the hunt, with the possibility, with the dream that maybe, just maybe, they'll be the next person to make that life-changing discovery. So what should you do right now? Immediately after watching this, go find every 1951 rarest wheat penny you can. Check your collections, your family's collections, visit estate sales and flea markets, buy old penny rolls from banks and go through them meticulously. Examine every single 1951 rarest you find under magnification. Look for that repunched S mint mark. Look for doubling on the obverse. Look for anything that seems unusual or different, and if you find something that makes your heart race, something that looks like it could be significant, do not clean it, do not handle it excessively, store it safely in a non-PVC plastic flip or holder, and contact a reputable coin dealer or grading service for professional evaluation, because you could very well be holding a fortune in your hands. The 1951 S wheat penny story is proof that American coinage history is filled with incredible treasures, that mints make mistakes, that quality control isn't perfect, that valuable errors slip through and enter circulation, and that decades later, generations later, these coins are still out there waiting to be discovered by someone knowledgeable enough to recognize what they have, and now you have that knowledge. You know what to look for, you understand why it's valuable, and you're armed with the information you need to potentially change your financial future forever, and who knows, maybe the next record-breaking auction, the next headline-making coin sale, the next $380 million penny will be the one you found sitting in an old jar in your basement, because stranger things have happened in the world of rare coins, and they happen more often than you might think, so get out there, start searching. And remember that fortune favors not just the brave, but the observant, the patient, and those who take the time to look closely at what everyone else overlooks, because that's where the real treasures are hiding, in plain sight, just waiting for someone like you to discover them.